Tonight's meeting will be a little complicated, so after the welcome and apologies, I would like to explain how I propose we deal with the items outstanding from the December meeting. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here this evening. It is my prayer that as elected representatives, we speak respectfully and consider the balance of needs of all current and future residents, as well as the environment in which we live. Before we begin, I would like to outline a few procedures in relation to this evening's meeting of Council. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. The webcast will be available on the Council website and only councillors and Council staff will be shown on camera. Council meetings are open to the public as observers only. In line with the Code of Meeting Practice, members of the public can address Council via the monthly public forum. Councils may close part of the meeting to deal with certain confidential matters in accordance with Section 10A of the Local Government Act. These discussions will not be open to the public or the press and will not be webcast. All attendees must comply with Code of Meeting Practice and other relevant codes, Council codes, policies and procedures. Attendees must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct or making other defamatory statements. Councillors and Council staff must declare and manage any conflicts of interest that they may have in relation to any item of business that is on the agenda this evening. Before we continue, we have received a request from the Australian Broadcasting Commission to record part of tonight's meeting. In accordance with Clause 15.23 of the Code of Meeting Practice, filming the proceedings of the meetings requires the prior authorisation of Council. So, as Mayor, I seek a motion to permit the recording of this meeting by the ABC. Moving that, seconded by Councillor Lennon. Let us put this to a vote. So all those in favour of being recorded by the ABC tonight, they are Deputy Mayor Kay, Councillor Spencer, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Councillor Alec Taylor, Councillor Ward and myself, and against it is Councillor Petit. So I declare this carried. Now, if any person attending the meeting does not agree to being recorded, they can choose to wait in the gallery or leave the meeting. Now, for apologies, are there any apologies for councillors?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I'm sorry, procedural. Can I just clarify?
Yeah, sure.
So the motion that we passed earlier was part of the, sorry, I should say, part of the meeting.
Yes.
And I see that they're getting ready now.
Yes.
So are they recording the whole meeting?
I think they're only interested in GB 18.
Can we clarify that, please?
Okay, so
for the
just
purpose
to
of the
clarify,
motion.
just to clarify with the ABC, are you only here for GB 18 and the Merrill Minute 3 on housing? Yeah. Yes. I'll invite the manager of comms.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. They're here on a story about housing, the housing reform, and they're here to give context to the story, so they won't be filming the whole debate. It'll be on TV, so it'll be probably 15 seconds or 20 seconds, something like that, but it's about filming a live council meeting, which they can't get it properly off through the live stream. That's what I've talked to the journalist about. The person here today is a camera operator only.
So, Mr. Mayor, could we just clarify that in the motion, please? Like, for instance, a Mayor Minute and GB 18. Thank you.
Can we revise a motion that's already? Let's redo that motion. So the motion is that Council agrees to the ABC's request to record Merrill Minute 3 and GB 18 of the February Ordinary Meeting of Council. So I will move that, seconded by Councillor Lennon. All those in favour are unanimous. Okay, sure. So that's carried. Now we are up to apologies. Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'd just like to pass on an apology from Councillor Greg Taylor, who has a very important work commitment tonight.
All right, sure. So I seek a motion to accept these apologies and grant a leave of absence. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Right. Apologies by staff. Are there any apologies?
Mr. Mayor, there are no apologies from staff.
Thank you. Now, following a procedural motion moved by Councillors Pettet and Kay at the December meeting of Council, that meeting was adjourned to the date and time of this February meeting. The following matters are still to be considered this evening. NM1, the Marion Street Theatre minimalist repairs for reopening. NM2, the Welcome Here project. NM3, the Canoon Road Recreation Area Plan of Management and Ku-ring-gai Netball Association. C1, the procurement of an external consultant to assist with recruitment of the General Manager. And C2, a supplementary report for the Linfield Village Hub. Now, in order to deal with this business, I would like to move that we adjourn the start of the February meeting until these matters are dealt with. So I move for the adjournment. Is there a seconder? It was Councillor Wheatley first, so seconded by Councillor Wheatley. All those in favour? That is unanimous. With that, I declare business from the December meeting to be resumed at 7:07 p.m. Now, I note that at the December meeting, Deputy Mayor Kay declared a conflict of interest in item C1, the procurement of external consultant to assist with the recruitment of the General Manager, as she was elected to the Local Government New South Wales Board. She advised that she would leave the chamber during debate on this item. Councillors, are there any updates or changes to conflicts of interest declarations for the December agenda items? No? Okay, we also note that at the December meeting, the Acting General Manager advised that Council staff would leave the chambers during the debate on item C1, the procurement of an external consultant to assist with the recruitment of the General Manager. General Manager, are there any updates or changes to conflict of interest declarations for staff for December items?
Mr. Mayor, there are no changes. That same declaration applies.
All right, thank you. Now, in December, there was a late paper circulated to councillors, which was a petition with 70 signatures relating to item C2, the supplementary report for the Linfield Village Hub. Are there any other documents circulated in the councillors' papers for items in the December agenda?
Mr. Mayor, there are no additional documents.
So at the December meeting, the General Manager noted that the contents of items C1 and C2 would be dealt with in a closed session. This was carried unanimously. So we can now move to the notice of motions. So first of all, we have NM1, which is with regard to Marion Street Theatre. Councillor Lennon, you have a motion for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to move motion NM1.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Ward. Councillor Lennon, as mover, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion is just about options. That's all. It's not a commitment to do anything more than get some costing. We have had for some years talk about what was called the medium development option some years ago, the costs of which have somewhat increased massively over the years. The sad reality is at the moment we do not have majority councillor support to progress that. What we're looking to tonight is to explore another option. This is the minimalist option. And I've been to a lot of theatre in my life, and I tell you, some wonderful theatre is in some pretty bad places. Places a lot worse than the Main Street Theatre is nowadays. So if we can get some costing as to what it might be to simply reopen the theatre at the minimal level to deal with the electrical issues of 10 years ago and the other compliance issues of 10 years ago, we at least then have something to consider. It's not a commitment to go forward, but at least we know the numbers. Some months ago at a council meeting, I mentioned that I'd been told the ballpark figure for this was about $4 million, and it did actually attract a rather wry look from one of our directors as to the origins of it. And I can see why, because that was some years ago. What we need is an updated figure as to what it would cost to do this minimalist reopening for something that can, again, create options. And it was actually said to me by one of our directors some time ago that had council known some years ago what the medium development option would become in terms of costing, ending up with this $25 million figure, then council at the time would not have proceeded with it. And I've been through this through years of Save Main Street Theatre soirees since I think 2016 or so over there in Killara. And we had an expectation or confidence about that medium development option continuing when the cost of it was a lot less than it is now. So what tonight's motion is saying is that's still on the table, we're still looking at options, but let's consider what the minimalist is just to reopen the theatre, to get theatre back into Marion Street, back into Ku-ring-gai, and give a chance for performers and spectators alike to enjoy good theatre in Ku-ring-gai. So I commend the motion to you. Thank you.
Councillor Ward, as seconder, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, in addition to what's in the motion and what Councillor Lennon has just spoken about, Marion Street Theatre was a prominent cultural heart and hub for the performing arts in Ku-ring-gai for many decades. It's been the lifeblood of the arts and culture. It's been allowed to fall into decline and decay. A travesty. All we're asking for today is to re-look at an important community asset has laid idle for years, and since the council does not have immediate funds to build new theatre, it is of critical importance to at least investigate the cost of renovating Marion Street's theatre so it can reopen. There's social and economic benefits of a reopened theatre, an opportunity for council to revitalise and create a performing arts hub, not just for Ku-ring-gai, but beyond. The financial benefits to ancillary businesses and community are self-evident as the legacy council will leave for future generations as the population of Ku-ring-gai and its surrounds continues to grow. Of course, none of this is possible without the real effect and cooperation amongst councillors to pass an M1, which is merely asking to explore some costing to reopen. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a first question to Director Watson. Have we got any budget to do any of this work at this point in time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the project is unbudgeted in the current financial year.
Thank you, Director. I might suggest to the ward council that you might need a bit of a budget in place. You might want to put an additional point of maybe, I don't know, allocate a budget of say 50,000 or 100,000 to actually do some of this work. So I might suggest that to you if you want to incorporate that in your motion first.
I'm not sure if we're supposed to respond to that or not. I leave it to the acting general manager to advise as to whether that is something that we need to do or we ought to do. Otherwise, I will leave it in the hands of our excellent council staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, in the absence of that, staff will undertake whatever is necessary to get that report done, and we will identify the budget adjustment in the appropriate quarterly review.
Thank you.
Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few questions that sort of sprung to my mind when we've revisited this particular project for the 18th time. Has there been any requests or interest from the community to go back to the old format and internal design of the building? Director Watson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of anything that hasn't come through the two ward councillors.
Thank you. Have we had any interest from theatre groups wanting the old format and design? Director Watson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not that I'm aware of, Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Director. What was the capacity pre-closure, Director? Would 290 be around the mark somewhere?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I would have said 300, but 290. Yep.
290, 300, okay, so fair enough. In the original building, was there any DDA compliance issues, or did we actually comply with anything, such as toilets, access, etc., etc.?
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's a lot of compliance issues to be resolved. Councillor Pettit.
Would we need to go to external consultants to come up with options how to deal with those, Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes.
Would you need budget now to do those consultant work?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think the General Manager's, Acting General Manager's answered that question.
That's okay, just thought I'd throw that out there. Do you have any idea of the attendance numbers by year before the building was closed, Director? And through probably Director Bevan might be able to answer this one.
Mr Mayor and Councillors, that is a rather difficult question. I could probably take it on notice and get it back to you, but no, unfortunately, that was over 10 years ago.
Thank you, Director. Through the Acting General Manager being the finance man, how much did we actually receive in income under the old format before it was closed? And roughly what was the annual expenditure on the building approximately per annum?
Through you, Mr Mayor, if my recollection is correct, there was a small amount of rent received that covered the operating costs, but my colleagues the Director Community may have a better memory than I do about it.
Mr Mayor and Councillors, this is really testing us 10 years ago. I seem to recall we were getting a rental for around $9,000-10,000 from the Marion Street Theatre for young people. There was a subsidy for community groups, and I think that was about what we were getting, but I could take that on notice again and get you more accurate figures.
Thank you, Director Bevan. Your numbers aren't too bad. I think they might be a little bit more generous at times. I think they might have been a little bit less with income, but not too bad. Having said that, why are we here again, councillors? This time, 2 years ago, we had a motion from the two ward councillors which actually delayed and stopped council officers working on this project. Unfortunately, then we had to rescind that NOM so the council staff could once again proceed with the preferred option, which was to go with the middle of the road rebuild, which we had done extensive consultation. We then had a few other options thrown around. We had Councillor Spencer's let's sell the whole site option, which certainly raised some eyebrows within the community. We also then had another notice of motion by Councillor Ward, which the background was that we would be knocking down and rebuilding 13 stories as an option. So there we've had three. Sell it, knock down, rebuild, go with the middle of the road. We're now at the fourth option, the minimalist option. And as you've heard from Director Watson, there's been no interest. There was no interest from anybody. Over 10 years, Council had explored what the community wanted. Whilst I can appreciate going out and getting another report on a minimalist, perhaps it might be advantageous to consult with the community to see if they've got any interest in it at all, and then come back and get staff to look at it. In that $50,000 budget that I was suggesting, perhaps we could have done some of that consultation. Get the horse and cart in the right order. However, I can see this going through as is. Once we get the information back, a quick question. What would be the next step, Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we really don't want to speculate on a report we haven't done yet. It'll be up to council to consider reports that come back.
Thank you, Director. When would we, if it was favourable, when would we be likely to go out to community consultation? Would this be in this term or the next council term? Again, it's a bit of crystal balling. Just a thought.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there are restrictions on what council can and can't do in caretaker period, and I would anticipate that this project would require a fresh development application, so there's a lot of decisions for the council to make before we go to public consultation.
Thank you, Director. So, in summation then, that would mean that the next council would actually be dealing with this potential option and not even proceed with it should they so desire. Is that a fair summation?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's highly unlikely that this council would get to make significant decisions.
Thank you, Director. I mean, given that we've had a bit of a turnover in the Gordon Ward councillors, we might get two brand new Gordon Ward councillors that might actually revisit the middle of the road rebuild. I'll leave it at that for now. Councillor Kay?
So, are you finished? Yes, Deputy Mayor Kay.
Okay, I've got a question too. So through you, Mr Mayor, to the relevant director, which I believe is Director Watson. We're talking about minimal repairs here. Is there a percentage of the building that would need these repairs on average? Are we talking 70%? As this repair list seems quite extensive to me. Are you able to provide that?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, I'm not able to.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. While he may not be able to provide a percentage, the Acting Director Operations may be able to comment on the extent of work required.
Through you, Mr Mayor, from what I've seen of the premises, there will be significant work required on DDA compliance and other essential services like fire services, possibly air conditioning. So they would be the major requirements of the premises.
Councillor Pettit.
Just another follow-up question. When was the last time the kitchen was actually run as a proper commercial kitchen? Director Watson, I can see you smiling at this one.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I don't know the exact date, but it will be running not far off 20 years at least.
All right, I'm going to say at this point also that clause 9.17 of the Code of Meeting Practice says that councillors must put questions directly, succinctly, respectfully, and without argument. Then clause 9.18 says that the chairperson must not permit discussions on any reply to or refusal to reply to a question put to a councillor or council employee. So I know that at Ku-ring-gai we have traditionally asked a lot of questions, and we've even used questions basically to replace a speech, but I would discourage us from asking too many questions because it is actually contrary to the code. Councillor Pettit, do you have...
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Quite happy to ask very informative questions. Director Watson, would you have any ballpark figure for this, you know, like from A to B with this, or not necessarily yourself, but also the Acting Director of Operations for this minimalist rebuild might be? Like 5 to 10 mil, 10 to 15? Have you got any idea that you could share with councillors?
Through you, Mr Mayor, without having the detailed investigations of what is required, it's really hard to place an estimate on what a minimalist renovation could be.
Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I haven't prepared anything on this. I am gently in favour of this motion. I share Councillor Pettit's concerns about spending money on reports. I share his concerns about us making decisions, but I also believe that Councillor Lennon is right that all we're doing is getting another option. I actually have had people in the community mention Marion Street Theatre to me and the idea of reopening it without a full rebuild. So I do think it is something that the community would be interested in knowing. I'm pessimistic about the answer, unfortunately, but on balance, I'm in favour of the motion and will vote in favour of it.
Are there any other speakers? If not, I'll invite Councillor Lennon to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Pettit should have no doubt about the community support for this, because I think both of us attended the first of the Save Main Street Theatre soirees at the Clara Bowling Club in, from memory, about 2016. It was standing room only. I attended each and every soiree of the support and Save Main Street Theatre through those years, including one we had by Zoom through the pandemic. We should have no doubt that the community of Ku-ring-gai and beyond would like to see theatre revived at Main Street. We know that. And yes, 2 years ago, Councillor Ward and I did seek to again explore options. We want to progress the theatre and we will explore options. And indeed, within a week before the council meeting in March 2022, Councillor Pettit was with us in a meeting in the meeting room of the Gordon Library with many representatives of the Save Main Street Theatre people. And everything was full steam ahead with the review of that particular design, again simply looking for options, looking to progress this project. We did not know that within a week, I think about 15 minutes before the evening that commenced, the following council meeting, Councillor Pettit informed me that he had withdrawn his support. So we never know quite how things are going to pan out with Councillor Pettit, but we should be in no doubt the people of this municipality would like this theatre revived. And all we are doing tonight is looking for options, and we will continue to look for options. The mid-development option is still on the table. It is still the preferred option. Councillor Ward and I had a motion last year to go out asking for governments and asking for people's money, because this council has never actually asked the state or federal government for money to fund Main Street Theatre. We have never gone to the people. Now, several times, Councillor Ward and I have sought means to do that, and unfortunately we've not had the support to do it. I thank my fellow councillors who gave us the support to thwart those efforts to sell Main Street Theatre, and I thank them for all the support they've given us to the extent that they have, but we have not had the majority support we need to revive the theatre, unfortunately. Tonight we are again looking for options, and I tell you now, I will continue looking for options because I want theatre in Ku-ring-gai, not just for the people of Ku-ring-gai, but for the people of Sydney. And there's a lot we can do as a council we have never done. The work that was done on the minimalist option was some years ago. All we want to do is update that number. I appreciate Councillor Alex Taylor's apprehension as to what that number might be, and knowing Councillor Alex Taylor, that's an extremely rational and sensible apprehension. But all we can do is ask the question. Let's tell us the number. And perhaps that's a number we can go forward with, perhaps it isn't, I don't know. But let's get the number. And if that's a decision for the next council rather than this one, well, so be it. At least we are providing them with information. We're not providing them with a costing for the minimalist renewal that is 5 or 6 years out of that. Because people who want the theatre are also understandably concerned about the cost. Let's give them a number. And that's parameters for all the options. I mean, when we look to attracting, ideally at some point in time, federal, state government or philanthropist support for the middle development option, we can at least say, well, this is what that costs. These are the minimalist. We will explore options. We want theatre in Ku-ring-gai, and the people of this municipality, I believe, want it. So I implore this motion today. Thank you.
So with that, we will put that to a vote. Those who are in favour, please raise your hands. And that is, councillors, that is unanimous. Right, next up we have NM2, the Welcome Here project. Councillor Alex Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as printed without recommendation C.
So without recommendation C. Okay.
Which has kind of become superseded as we're actually kind of in Pride Week right now.
So seeking a seconder, Councillor Ward. So Councillor Taylor.
I'd actually like to reserve my right to speak to it.
Okay, Councillor Ward reserves her right. Any speakers on this? Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm wondering if the mover of the motion might want to add into point B to include councillors as part of the training in inclusivity. And that could be a regular thing.
That would be great. Thanks. So I think the motion now becomes, recommendation B becomes council's frontline staff and councillors be briefed on the project and trained in inclusivity.
And checking with the seconder, you are still happy? Yep, that's fine. All right. Deputy Mayor Kay.
Okay, I'd like to speak for the motion. The Welcome Here project is designed to foster inclusivity and support the LGBTQ+ individuals. It will bring numerous benefits to the residents of Ku-ring-gai. It will promote inclusivity and diversity, support for the LGBTQ+ community, community engagement and awareness, youth support, enhanced reputation, educational opportunities, community solidarity and resilience. By embracing the Welcome Here project, Ku-ring-gai not only supports its LGBTQ+ residents, but also fosters this more inclusive, educated and empathetic community overall. The Welcome Here project in Ku-ring-gai would significantly benefit the community. It would support the LGBTQ+ community and increase community awareness about LGBTQ+ issues. Now, building on the success of the Welcome Here project in Ku-ring-gai, several complementary initiatives can be considered further to support the community and promote inclusivity. This would include community forums and workshops, pride events, potentially for next year, partnerships with LGBTQ+ businesses and organisations, cultural and artistic events, health and wellbeing programs, public awareness campaigns. These initiatives can build a more inclusive community where diversity is celebrated and all residents, including those from the LGBTQ community, feel valued and supported. The Ku-ring-gai Council can strategically place Welcome Here stickers in various locations to maximise visibility impact. Here are some ideal locations: council buildings and facilities, local businesses, public transport hubs and bus shelters, educational institution, healthcare facilities, cultural venues, tourism information centres, sports facilities, parks and public spaces, and potentially community centres. By placing these stickers in prominent and varied locations, the Council can effectively communicate its support for the community and foster a sense of safety and inclusion throughout Ku-ring-gai. I encourage all councillors to support this motion and commend the residents that came to address the public forum and bringing this initiative to our council and councillors. Thank you.
Councillor Alec Taylor. Councillor Lennon, do you have a question or speech?
Oh no, I was going to speak. I know Councillor Alec Taylor and the people who support this motion have the best intentions. I know that you mean very well, and I appreciate the sensitivities that you want to address, and I commend you for it. I share that. Everybody in this municipality is welcome to attend all our community facilities at any time. There should be no doubt about that. My concern is more about the specific in identifying a particular group. Some month or two ago, I was talking to a woman who was a lecturer in behavioural sciences at the university. And she was telling me that for young people today, they feel that if they're heterosexual, comfortable in their own gender, not incurring what she described as psychiatric issues, but probably more broadly, feel like they're not part of the in-crowd. And that's unfortunate. We want everybody to feel welcome. I don't think we want people to feel like there's a particular group of people that are more in than anyone else. I've got 6 children, and I know that as a parent, we don't simply agree with our children, we don't support them simply by agreeing with them. Sometimes as a parent, we seek to guide, to teach, to ideally prepare them for life with whatever humble wisdom we have to offer. And some of the guidance we provide our children, I think, are 2 particular examples. One is reality. We cannot deal with life if you don't engage with reality. Biology is reality. I'm sorry, but we should not be suggesting that anything other than engaging with reality is in people's best interests. How do we deal with medical issues and everything else if we're not engaging with reality? The second thing I want to point to is the sense of human nature. Human beings, like animals, have certain instincts. One of our instincts is to survive, individually and collectively. And with that comes certain consequences in terms of our psychology. Some years ago, a very dear friend of mine decided that he's a woman. He was a very good friend, he's a very lovely person, a very good part of my life. I don't believe Councillor Alec-Taylor's motion, for its wonderful intentions, for its good-heartedness, actually serves that friend of mine or others. Like all of us, I've got many friends who are subject of this motion, and they're good and decent people for whom I wish nothing but the best for. I don't believe that this particular motion, by elevating one group of people above another, across the Smiths Valley, we're all welcome. And I'm sorry that some people feel less than welcome, because they are welcome. I just don't think that this motion is constructive for those people or for the people who care about it. And I do care about it. I know that we all do care about it. But I would like a motion that affirmed our support for them, affirmed our welcoming for them, but did not single out any particular group in our municipality for welcome above all others. So let me say again, I appreciate and respect the good intentions of the motion. I respect what we're trying to do with the motion. I simply humbly suggest that this is not the most constructive way to deal with the feelings, the aspirations, the longings, whatever moves people into the lifestyles and the beliefs that they have. Sometimes caring about people, sometimes loving people. It's tough. And we don't have to say anything. I would hate to have any suggestion that anybody is not welcome in our community facilities. But I'm concerned about elevating any particular group above everybody else.
Councillor Alec, just checking to see if there's any other speakers on this item. Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Taylor and I quite often oppose on many items through council. This isn't one of them. The way that I see this is that it would mean little to most, but it would mean a lot to the people, the few people that are wanting to be welcomed and need this sort of support. In council, I listen to the mothers come up and speak. It was, you know, it was quite confronting to see what they're dealing with. When they're dealing with their children, the people they love, they just want them to be accepted. I think that anything to move forward, that we can offer some acceptance to these people if they're feeling that way, I think that's something that's very important. I read an email going back 4 weeks ago. It was written to me very personally from a person who had a child. This lady I replied to, she wanted to see where I was. She did actually mention to me, she said, I'm quite vocal on council. I wasn't sure whether to take that as a compliment or not. But wanted to get my thoughts on what I thought with this notice of motion. During that, she explained the pain that she goes through, the angst, the concern, and I think that is really, really hard to read and listen to. I did write to her and said that I listened to everything that she had to say, and I appreciated the honest position that she put forward. And I told her, due to the matter, coming before council, I was not able to let her know where my position was. So if she is listening tonight, you know what my position is. I'm in support of this, and I hope that we can get the support of the council tonight. Thank you.
I may speak to this briefly. So I've heard what various councillors have said tonight. I appreciate everyone's point of view. Especially thank Councillor Lennon for sharing his perspective, his experience with people that are close to him. Personally, what stands out to me is the statistic that 61% of LGBTQI plus communities surveyed had experienced homophobic abuse in recent years. Now, I don't really care what someone's persuasion is, whether it's a political or gender or racial or whatever it is. When there's a high percentage of any one particular demographic experiencing abuse, that's not cool. So I do understand what this initiative seeks to achieve. Will it achieve it? Well, it may help some people, and for other people it might not, but I think despite all of that, we must give it a go. We must give it a try and see how it goes. I did have various conversations with Councillor Taylor beforehand about the size of the sticker. Is it a sticker or is it really a poster? Does it set a precedent? Will we have a big wall filled with multiple stickers? But I think given the importance of this particular issue, I think it is important for us to at least give it a go, see what impacts it has, and let us not stop just at sticking up a sticker somewhere. This is a complex issue which, a sticker by itself will not resolve in isolation. So I am supportive of point B as well, that we start with education, and I'm sure that in the coming years, as we further understand this issue, as we further engage with members of society who are impacted by these issues, that we will come up with additional ideas. So I will commend the motion in its current form. I'm just seeing, are there any other speakers? If not, I will ask Councillor Taylor to sum up.
Okay, thank you. Just to confirm, how long do I have to sum up?
5 minutes.
Okay, I won't need that. So last year I attended a meeting with a couple of interested councillors, council staff and representatives from the LGBT community, including the president of North Shore Rainbow. It was a fantastic meeting. We asked them how we could help them make the LGBT community feel more included in Ku-ring-gai, and top of the list was the Welcome Here initiative. Simply put, it will send a small but significant signal to the community that our facilities are LGBT friendly, with a professionally designed rainbow sticker of modest size. This is what the community asked for when we engaged them. I respect the view that not everybody in the community feels the same way about this issue, and not everybody in the community will respond in the same way. But I do feel that a large proportion of this community would like to have this small symbolic action. And we're not just talking about the community directly, by the way, we're talking about parents, siblings, schoolmates, work colleagues, and the broader community. This is, I think, an opportunity for us to act, and I would greatly appreciate it if as many people as possible could support this motion tonight. Just finally, it's not about elevation. It's definitely not about elevation. We do things for small subgroups all the time, actually, so we make a fuss about and encourage small groups, smaller subsegments of the population all the time, and I think that's appropriate. We celebrate other cultures, we celebrate sub-communities, and this is a small action for one sub-community and everybody related to that community. So I think it's actually broader than a specific community, and I think it's appropriate to do, and not really an elevation at all. And with that, I think I'm finished. Thank you.
All right, so let's call this to a vote. All those in favour of NM2, please raise your hands. That is Councillors Kay, Spencer, Pettit, Smith, Wheatley, Taylor, Ward and Nye. Against is Councillor Lennon. I declare that carried. Next up we have NM3, Canoon Road Recreation Area Plan of Management and Ku-ring-gai Netball Association. Given that Councillor Greg Taylor is not here, I will permit another councillor to move the motion, and we have Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to move the motion in Councillor Greg Taylor's absence.
And seconded by Councillor Taylor, Alec Taylor. Oh. Yep. Okay, so Councillor Lennon as mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My youngest daughter played netball for 7 years up at Canoon Road, and I know that the traffic and parking issues up there have challenged for a lot of netballers and also for a lot of local residents. This motion is the result of some consultation I understand that Councillor Greg Taylor had with netballers and involving local community to find some means of improving the situation for both. This is seeking to be good for netballers and good for the local residents by moving some of the excess and crowded traffic of a Saturday morning to a slightly quieter time, a much quieter time early on Thursday evening. So it sounds almost a cliche to talk about a win-win situation, but this is seeking to do that. This is seeking to make life a little bit easier for netballers, their families, and for the local residents who we know have found the netball up there sometimes in a position. This is seeking to mitigate that for them for everyone's benefit. So I applaud the motion too. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor as seconder.
I'd like to reserve my right.
Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just quickly ask a question. Under this particular motion, is there any impetus to put any games during the week? Which director would like to talk to this? Director Watson would like to talk to that. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The motion as proposed does not require any games to be played on a Thursday.
Thank you, Director. So just to clarify that, this motion does not actually improve traffic, is that correct? By transferring games?
It doesn't transfer any games to the Thursday. It allows games to be played on a Thursday at the discretion of KNA.
Thank you, Director. I'd just like to move a slight amendment to the wording, and council staff have that. So you will see there under point A, in the highlighted and bold, I have reinserted the words, "This is a key action and high priority of the PON to reduce usage on Saturdays. The age group with the highest number of participants each year will be moved from Saturdays to Thursdays." And I seek a seconder for that.
Is there a seconder for this amendment? If not, then this lapses. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Pettit.
Well, councillors, there is now no impetus for netball to move any games. They can choose not to do so. Actually, I had a discussion with the President and he agreed that it would make sense to move the age group with the most number of participants from a Saturday to midweek. So he was actually in favour of that amendment, which nobody would second. Outstanding. So, what will we have? They don't have to play any games midweek. They can have them all back on Saturday. That is what you've done. So Councillor Lennon's statement saying, oh, it'll reduce traffic on Saturdays by moving games, actually it doesn't. We've actually done the opposite. We're not forcing them to put any games on Saturday. So, fair enough. So be it. Once again, residents of South Turrimer get left behind. They were quite willing to have games during the week. The netball wanted games being played on a Thursday. They wanted under-9s being played on a Thursday. They agreed to play games on a Thursday. Now they can just pick and choose, or choose not to. Brilliant. So you're actually going to increase traffic on Saturdays at the expense of the residents of South Turramurra. I appreciate it. It actually makes it easier for me to get re-elected because I'm there to stand for the residents of South Turramurra and to try and reduce the amount of traffic on a weekend. However, with no seconder, we're going to increase it. So thank you for that. It certainly will help for my re-election. Because voters of South Turramurra have a clear choice. Somebody that stands with them, who wants to reduce the traffic on Saturdays, or somebody that's put up a motion saying, pick and choose if you want it. Move any games. No problems. So thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think there's a very subtle but important point that's been missed here, which is although we're not specifically forcing the NSBA to move a specific age group or a specific group of games to a nighttime, we are allowing them to. I think it's incredibly encouraging that the president of NSBA, KNA, I beg your pardon, KNA, that the president of KNA has already demonstrated a willingness and interest to move the games with the greatest popularity to the Thursday nights. I think they're already operating in the right way for the community. They're thinking in the right way for the community. Not only do I think it will be not bad for the local people of South Turramurra, I am very confident that this motion will improve things for local residents, particularly on the weekend. I think it will improve traffic in the area because it will allow the KNA to move games onto weeknights, but not for specific games.
I'd like to speak in support of this motion. Just first of all, I have not yet heard myself from the president of KNA that he was open to the concept of moving an entire age group, the largest one, from Saturday to Thursday. If I get that in writing, that would be fantastic, that would be helpful, and it would have been helpful to have had that information before this meeting. But having said all that, I do believe that the current motion as it stands allows for further feedback. So what we're doing is we're going to put this on public exhibition for a 42-day period, and during that time, the president of KNA is more than welcome to make a submission to say that we would like to move a certain age group from Saturday to Thursday. He's more than welcome to do that. During that time also, for Councillor Pettit's re-election, the residents of South Turramurra are more than welcome to provide their responses as well. So we have a public exhibition process for 42 days. Anyone can write. The council staff will prepare a report after that, and the decision will come back to council in about 2 months' time. So I am in support of this and encourage other people to do so as well. Thank you. Now, just checking, are there any other speakers? If not, I'd ask Councillor Lennon to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that with netball, like other sports, the demands on traffic vary a lot according to age groups, that different age groups of players will have more carpooling than other ages. So that changing the type of game and the age of the player will actually have an impact upon traffic, because you get more people in a car, more players in a car than you do in some age groups than in other. That's what I understand. And I certainly believe that the intention of the netballers is to make life easier for themselves and the local residents, many of whom, of course, are the same people play netball as live locally. This is not one side or the other. This is often people with a common interest. We don't need Councillor Pettit's words to keep the netballers from making life better for the locals. We simply want to give them the flexibility to manage it with their requirements. And I think if Councillor Pettit has an idea to make a motion better, it might be a good idea to flag it with Councillor Greg Taylor before the meeting, rather than ambushing it in his absence. And those of us who are moving this for Councillor Greg Taylor's absence are not going to second a motion without his approval. So I suggest that perhaps you communicate with your fellow ward council if you've got an idea to improve a motion rather than ambushing it with a deep suspicion about your motives. So I implore this motion too. Thank you.
So with that, let's put it to a vote. All in support of NM3. They are Councillors Kay, Spencer, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Taylor, Ward and Nye. Those against are Councillor Pettit. So I declare that carried. We are now up to the confidential items of the December meeting. I know there are 2 items, C1 and C2. It is my hope that, if at all possible, we can move these to have them voted without having to discuss anything confidential, without having to close out the meeting and, temporarily kick out the public, shut down cameras and staff, all that. So do we have a motion for C1? Councillor Taylor?
I've declared a conflict.
Oh yes, so
Thank you.
for item C1, Councillor Kay has declared a conflict. So we ask her to step outside for a moment. So, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe staff have my motion on file.
So, can you please read it out for the benefit of the public?
So it's just simply that the council appoints consultant number 16 from the confidential report to assist with the recruitment of the general manager.
Seconded by Councillor Wheatley. Are there any speakers to this, or do we have to? Nope, no speakers. All right. In that case, let us put it to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous. So I declare that carried. We'll ask the Deputy Mayor to step back inside. Next up, we have item C2, the supplementary report for the Linfield Village Hub. So, Councillor Taylor.
I would like to move the officer's recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Wheatley. Would you like to speak to the...
No.
No. No, reserve right. Any speakers? If not, we'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay. So we will deal with any business without notice and questions with notice when we get to the agenda for the February meeting. There being no further business, I declare the December meeting of Council closed at 7:58 p.m. on the 20th of February 2024. Now, with December's business out of the way, I declare the February meeting open. We have already taken a record of attendance and granted leave of absence for this evening. It will be minuted as such for the February agenda. Now, disclosures of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest declarations for councillors for items in the February agenda? Councillor Lennon.
Mr. Mayor, item GB13, one of the applicants is known to me and has been for some time, so I will excuse myself from the chamber of consideration of GB13.
Right, thank you. And on declarations of interest, we just need to clarify whether it's pecuniary, significant non-pecuniary, or non-significant non-pecuniary. So, significant non-pecuniary?
Non-significant non-pecuniary.
Okay.
Not a friend of long-standing.
Okay, sure. All right, Councillor Wheatley.
I'm going to declare a conflict of interest as well with GB13.
Okay, same reasons?
Okay, same reasons.
Right, okay. So non-significant, non-pecuniary.
Correct.
For Councillor Wheatley on GB13. Are there any other declarations? Okay, if not, we will continue. Are there any conflict of interest declarations for the staff?
Mr. Mayor, there are no declarations from staff.
Okay, are there any documents circulated in the councillors' papers to be dealt with at the appropriate time during the meeting?
There are, Mr. Mayor. Relating to GB13, the Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel, there's a memo from the Director of Development and Regulation dated 9 February 2024 providing the confidential attachment containing applications for the community member roles. Relating to GB18, the Transport Oriented Development Program and low and mid-rise housing provisions, there's a memo from the Manager Corporate Communications dated 20 February 2024, providing the results of the community survey conducted in relation to the government housing policy changes. There is also Mayoral Minute 3 on housing policy update, including letter to the Premier. And I also have received a revised disclosure of interest from Councillor Kay, and I also have a new disclosure of interest from the Acting Finance Manager, Anne Wang, and those two disclosures are to be tabled at Council.
Okay, thank you. Now, are there any reports to be considered in a closed meeting and not released to the press and public?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Relating to GB13, the Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel, there are 6 confidential attachments. Relating to GB15, which is a request for tender for a stormwater pollution device maintenance, there is attachment 2, the tender evaluation report. And relating to GB16, which is a tender for building schedule of rates panel, there is attachment 2, which is also the tender evaluation report. And that's it.
Thank you. Now, I seek a motion that these reports remain confidential. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favour? That is unanimous. Now, can I please get a motion to confirm, can I please get someone to confirm the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of Council on 23rd of January 2024? Moved by Councillor Wheatley, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favour? That's unanimous. Now, can I please get a motion, to confirm the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of Council on the 5th of February 2024? That is moved by Councillor Wheatley, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favour? That is unanimous. The minutes of the December meeting will be put to Council for confirmation at the next meeting in March. Now we are up to the mayoral minutes, and we have 3 of them. The first one, MM1, is for the 2024 Australia Day Honours and Citizen of the Year Awards, and I will read it out. I'm pleased to inform you that 9 Ku-ring-gai citizens, through their outstanding achievements and services to the community, have been awarded 2024 Australia Day Honours. We are very proud to have these dedicated and talented Australians as members of the Ku-ring-gai community. I would like to read to you the names of these special Ku-ring-gai citizens and, on behalf of Council, congratulate them on their excellent contributions to Australian society. We have Mr. Julian Bickersteth, AO of Wurrunga, for distinguished service to the museum and arts sector and to conservation and the environment. We have Mr. Dallas Wayne Booth, AM of South Turramurra, for significant service to the insurance industry and to the community. Mr. Guy Stewart Fowler, OAM of Killara, for services to business and to the community. Dr. Peter Charles Frederickson of Roseville for service to dermatology. Dr. Graham Cameron Grant, AO of Roseville Chase, for distinguished service to biomedical engineering as a pioneer of innovative equipment development and to medicine. Ms. Margaret Ann Hayes, OAM of Turramurra, for service to the community through a range of charitable organisations. The late Dr. Saskink Kumar, LAL OAM of Wurrunga, for services to tertiary education and to the community. Mr. Robert Lyons, OAM of Killara, for service to the community through a range of roles. And Mr. Anthony Kwong Ming Pang, OAM of Wurrunga, for service to the community through a range of roles. I also congratulate Ku-ring-gai Citizen of the Year winners for 2024. We had the Citizen of the Year, who was Michelle Bell, Young Citizen of the Year, who was Kevin Howe, Environmental Citizen of the Year, who is Gemma Lasichuk, Mayor's Award for an outstanding contribution by a community group, which is the Men's Kitchen Association Incorporated. On behalf of Council, I congratulate all these award winners on their outstanding achievements. Ku-ring-gai should be proud that it has citizens being recognised at the highest level for their selfless dedication, commitment and contribution to local, national and international communities. The recommendation is that Council acknowledge the outstanding contribution made by these recipients of 2024 Australia Day Honours to the Ku-ring-gai community and to the well-being of our society, and B, that the Mayor write to the recipients on behalf of Council to congratulate them on receiving their award, including a copy of this mayoral minute. Now, we don't have to have a seconder, but I'd like to invite a seconder to this. We have Councillor Lennon, who raised his hand first. So, moved by Councillor Nye, seconded by Councillor Lennon. I reserve my right to speak. I've just read it out. Councillor Lennon, would you like to speak?
Look, I just support the sentiment. The people that are named in this particular motion, I know some of them, and they're fine citizens and well worthy of the awards they receive, both from the municipality and at large. So I commend the mayoral minute and thank the Mayor for moving it.
All right. Are there any other speakers on this matter? Oh, Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. I would like to speak a little bit about a friend of mine, Mr. Anthony Pang, who very well deservedly earned his OAM. I've known him for over 10 years, and he's been a good friend of mine and a good friend of the community and the residents of Ku-ring-gai. He has been a volunteer for a number of associations, and I've seen him build, for instance, the CARES group up in Gordon from scratch, from having 2 members to, I believe it is now like 400 over members, and we just attended the Chinese New Year celebrations this morning. And I believe he was the recipient of the Ku-ring-gai Citizen of the Year last year, wasn't it? Yes. So this is really reinforces and the the work that is done, and a kind of gratitude that we are returning to him, and recognition of his hard work. And I'm really honored and proud to be a friend of his. Thank you.
Right. If there are no other speakers, let's put this to a vote. Those in favour? That is unanimous. Next up is Mayoral Minute 2, cost shifting onto local government. The pressure on councils to continue to provide services of appropriate standard to our communities is now extraordinary. The unrelenting growth of cost shifting to councils, coupled with rate pegging, is increasingly eroding any possibility of financially sustainable local government and risking the capacity of councils to deliver tailored grassroots services to their communities and properly deliver and maintain vital local infrastructure. Alarmingly, the latest research commissioned by Local Government New South Wales, LGNSW, shows that the increase in cost shifting has been accelerated by various New South Wales government policies. As shown in the latest cost shifting report produced by independent consultants Morrison Lowe on behalf of LGNSW for the 21-22 financial year, an amount of 1.36 billion of expenses has been passed on to councils to fund. This is an increase of 540 million since the last report from 17-18 financial year, and represents lost services, lost opportunity, and lost amenity for all of our residents and businesses. On average, this represents an additional cost of $460.67 for every ratepayer across the state. With councils having to fund this ongoing subsidy for the state government each and every year, it means our communities get less or go without. They go without better roads, they go without better parks, they go without important community services that only councils provide, and they and their ratepayers are effectively paying hidden taxes to other levels of government. Councillors, our communities deserve better, and this must stop. Prior to the most recent state election, the Min's opposition wrote to LGNSW acknowledging that cost shifting had undermined the financial stability of the local government sector. Now in 2024, it is important to councils and communities that the New South Wales government urgently seek to address cost shifting through a combination of regulatory reform, budgetary provision, and appropriate funding. So the motion is A, that council receive and note the findings of the LGNSW cost shifting report for the 21-22 financial year. B, that a copy be placed on council's website so that our communities can access it. And C, that council write to the Premier, the New South Wales Treasurer, and the New South Wales Minister for Local Government, seeking that they urgently seek to address cost shifting through a combination of regulatory reform, budgetary provisions, and appropriate funding. So with that being said, I'd like to seek a seconder. Well, I don't need to, but I'd like to. It's optional. So, Councillor Smith. Are there any speakers on this? Oh, Councillor Kay.
I've got an amendment.
Yes.
And if they could just put it up on the
Sure,
screen.
let's have a look
It's
at the
just to
amendment.
add on. It's quite simple.
Feel free to read it out.
Oh, I'll read it out. That council writes to members for Davidson, Matt Cross MP, and the member for Wahroonga, Alistair Henskins SC MP, seeking their support in addressing cost shifting.
Okay, so that is seconded by Councillor Spencer. All right then. So, Councillor Kay, would you like to speak to this?
I'll be really brief because I think the Merrill Minute covers most of it, so I'll just do a brief summary. Cost shifting onto local government remains one of the most significant challenges facing New South Wales councils today. As we've seen in the last analysis, the cost shift was $1.3 billion to councils. This equates to $460.67 per ratepayer per year. What is eating council rates? Emergency services levies, weight collection fees, library funding. As noted in the correspondence from the LGNSW dated the 24th of the 1st, 24, the effect of cost shifting is fewer services, less infrastructure, maintenance and investment, and the lost opportunity and amenity for our residents and businesses. It is important for local communities to be made aware of this for transparency. As we can see, the Min's government has acknowledged the current system is broken. I am looking forward to seeing change driven with favourable outcomes for our communities, with future urgent action being taken to address this issue. I've just got one quick question, if I could, through you, Mr. Mayor, to one of the relevant directors, which I believe would be Angela Apostle, okay, the Director of Finance. Could you please explain the effect that cost shifting has had on our council in the last couple of years financially? Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the cost shifting is a ratio on operating income of councils. So councils in previous years have been part of the surveys. So currently it's about 8% of our operating income, which is about 13 million a year. So that means 13 million a year we don't have to invest in our services or infrastructure. And the main cost, as you mentioned, Councillor, the main sort of cost drivers are waste levy, library subsidy, the emergency services levy, and a lot of DA regulatory services and others.
Thank you, that was helpful. That's all I have.
All right. Councillor Spencer, as seconder, would you like to speak? Reserves his right. Are there any other speakers on this amendment? If not, we will vote to make this amendment the motion. Those in favour of this amendment, please raise your hands. That is unanimous. The amendment has now become the motion, and let's put the motion to a vote. All those in favour, raise your hands. Thank you. That is unanimous, and I declare that carried. Next up, we have mayoral minute number 3, which is a housing policy update. I note that it is at this point that our friend from the ABC will be filming. So just reminding all councillors that this is taking place. Housing policy update. This mayoral minute follows MM1 and GB1 from the 5th of February 2024 extraordinary meeting of council to provide an update for noting on local activity regarding the state Labor government's proposed housing policy. Although councillors had met with the Department of Planning on the 24th of January to discuss the transport-oriented development TOD-SEP, we have yet to receive written answers to the questions that we had raised. Particular questions include getting further information on the underlying assumptions and modelling about why Roseville, Linfield, Killara and Gordon were selected, while other train stations closer to the city were not selected. This information is said to be cabinet in confidence. Housing targets for each TOD centre, we would like to get that. And we would also like to have further information on how it is possible to build 6 to 7 stories or 8 to 9 stories with affordable housing while respecting the fabric of a heritage conservation area. As per point E of the 5th of February 2024 GB1 resolution, letters were written to each NESROC council stating Ku-ring-gai's position on the housing policies. NESROC met on 15th of February where it decided to advocate for a deferral on the low and mid-rise housing SEP as well as the TOD SEP so that councils can undertake strategic planning upzone areas themselves and demonstrate how they will meet the housing targets with an agreed timeframe. As per point F of the 5th of February 2024 GB1 resolution, letters were written to each Sydney Metro Council urging them to carefully assess the implications of housing policies and seek change if considered appropriate. A housing survey conducted by the council had over 5,300 responses. Approximately 3/4 of survey respondents were against the housing policies in their current form, with just over a fifth in support and the remainder undecided. I had expected that if we filter for apartment residents or filter for the younger demographic, it would produce a very different outcome. But the 75, 22 and 3% split remained approximately the same for these subgroups. The survey indicates that there are strong concerns in the community for increased density to be appropriately supported by the delivery of infrastructure and amenities. A meeting originally scheduled on 15th of February with Paul Scully MP, the Minister for Planning, had been deferred by his office to 29th of February. Last week, the Premier publicly stated that he is willing to meet with mayors to talk about housing. In response, a letter has been issued to request a meeting, ask for deferral of the SEPs, and seek a constructive way forward. Council staff continue to implement all other points stated in the 5th of February 2024 GB1 resolution. So the recommendation here is that Council notes and receives this mayoral minute. Just seeing if anyone would like to speak to this. If not, Councillor Smith. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak to this. Everything you've put forward here this evening makes perfect sense. Unfortunately, our community has literally been evaded the right to be consulted in regarding to the TOD. You've already mentioned that there was 5,307 surveys done, which is just outstanding as far as it goes as surveys. I think it's important that we keep it up to the New South Wales government and state to the New South Wales government that we are prepared to take on planning, but it's got to be in a consultative approach and it's got to be done right. So I appreciate what you've put forward this evening, and I offer my support, and I hope we get everybody else's support. Thank you.
Councillor Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to echo that. It seems almost assumed in a representative democracy that the people would be involved. Our governments are there to represent us, people now and in the future. And the idea of any government imposing something as significant as this without engaging people is extraordinary. And this is a constant theme I get. People feel unrepresented by their state government on this particular issue. They commend this council for standing up for the people of this municipality, but they want a state government that also listens, that represents. And if at the end of the day the result of engagement is still something that people are unhappy with, at least there is engagement. People want to be heard, they want to be listened to, they want to be consulted. So I commend you, Mr. Mayor, for your mayoral minute. I commend this council for the support that it has shown for the people of this municipality. Thank you.
I would just like to briefly add that this motion isn't just for Ku-ring-gai, it is for all of New South Wales. All residents of New South Wales will be impacted in one shape or form by these proposed housing policies, and all residents, all councils deserve to have the opportunity to have a say in what is the most appropriate way of supporting the increased population wherever they are. I would really encourage all councils to consider what infrastructure is needed to create a plan and to deliver that plan in order to support our increasing population. Thank you. Now, are there any other speakers? If not, let's put this to a vote. All in favour of noting this mayoral minute? That is unanimous. Now we move on to petitions. Are there any petitions that have been received? No? So no petitions. I would now like to invite councillors to nominate any items on the agenda that they wish to have a site inspection for. No nominations for site inspection. Okay, I would like to ask a councillor to nominate any items on the agenda that they wish to adopt in accordance with the officer's recommendation, allowing for minor changes without debate. Do we have someone? So, Deputy Mayor Kay.
Okay, I'd like to move items GB1 to GB12 and then GB14 to GB17 and then GB19 and C1.
So just to clarify, on GB12,
Oh, sorry, GB12 with option A. Sorry.
Okay, so just for the purpose of staff, that's GBs 1 to 12, but with GB12 seeking option A, the reappointment of the incumbent alternate nominees for further period of up to 3 years, and that the Minister for Planning and Environment be advised of the decision. So 1 to 12, 14 to 17, 19 and C1.
Yeah, so that technically leaves out 13 and 18.
Okay, so 13 and 18 left out, the others dealt with in one go. Do we have a seconder for this or anyone seeking to withdraw? So seconded by Councillor Lennon. So let's put that, no one's withdrawing anything? Okay, let's put that to a vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, that's a lot of it out of the way. So we have left GB 13 and GB 18. Now GB 13 is up next. I understand we have 2 councillors who have declared a conflict on that matter. So I ask that they step outside for a moment while we deal with this. And once they step outside, I note that Councillor Spencer's light is on, so he may have a motion. So, Councillor Spencer, you have a motion.
I have a motion, and staff has it. If staff can put that up, please. I'm just going to pull that up on my phone as well.
Okay. And while staff are pulling it out, I'd ask you to read it out for us, for the benefit of the public.
Yes. So I'll read it out and I'll tell you the difference. So the motion is, do I need a seconder or should I read it out first?
Oh yes, seconded by Councillor Kay.
Thank you. So that Council A affirms the recommendations of the Acting General Manager Selection Panel and appoints community members in brackets, applicants 1, 2, 3, 11 and 12 referred to in the memorandum of 2 councillors from the Director Development and Regulation dated 9th February 2024, close bracket, to the Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel for a term of up to 3 years from 1 March 2024. And B, reappoints the remaining community member applicant 4 for a period of up to 3 years from 1st of March 2024. And C, notifies the Minister for Planning and Public Spaces and all the applicants of its decision. So essentially, it is staff's recommendation, except for the inclusion of applicants 11 and 12. And without going into confidential, I would just broadly say that the reason for that is to give us a much broader and wider pool of community members to choose from or to rotate from. Thank you.
Councillor Kay.
I reserve my right, that's fine.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I believe that the additional members that we're talking about, and I'm going to be careful not to disclose anything confidential, were nominated by staff earlier today, in addition to the 3 applicants, 1, 2 and 3. Is that correct, through you, Mr. Mayor or General Manager?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Spencer asked staff to recommend an additional 2 members, and they are the ones that have been added.
Okay, fantastic. So just briefly, I'm in support of having a broader panel. I think it's good for us to have a few different voices on that panel and diversity. I think it's great to have a lot of diversity on that panel. And I think our community has a lot of diversity, so we want representation across a diverse range of people on that panel. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other speakers to this motion? If not, I'll ask Councillor Spencer to sum up.
Well, thank you, Councillor Taylor, for your support. I forgot to mention that about diversity, and thank you for reinforcing that, because I was a little bit concerned about not disclosing anything that's confidential. I use the term wider and broader, but yes, it's more diversified as well. Thank you.
All right, now let's put this to a vote. Those in support of this motion, please raise your hands, and that is unanimous. So I'd ask that we get the other 2 councillors back in for our next item. And it appears that the ABC has lost interest. They're no longer here, so they're not here to film us on GB18. Or maybe they're coming back, I don't know. So now, with all councillors back, we will continue. We are continuing with GB18, the transport-oriented development and low and mid-rise housing provisions. Seeking a motion, Councillor Smith, your light is on. And
Mr. Mayor,
seems to be seconded by Councillor Wigby.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move the officer's recommendation with a couple of minor changes.
Sure, let's bring it up on the screen. And if you can either read out the full thing or explain what the differences are for the public, that would be great.
Okay, so the main difference being is in point D, which point D before that reflected that the state government work in collaboration with local councils as per intention. Sorry, one second. Yes, originally the point D was that the state government work in collaboration with local councils as per intention of the National Housing Accord to deliver additional housing in line with strategic planning process under the New South Wales Environmental Planning Assessment Act 1979. The only difference that we've actually made there is that the council request the New South Wales government. So we're being a little bit nicer about it. We've put in E is a substitute, sorry, is an additional item. The main reason that we've actually put E in is that we want to send the message out to the state government. Ku-ring-gai, like every other council in Sydney, the Greater Sydney area, is not refusing to accept any more development. They're wanting to do development in the right way, using planning and in a consultative manner. So to correct that, so that to stop any further misinformation going on about where Ku-ring-gai is and isn't, we've got point E that council communicate to the New South government its willingness to provide for additional housing through a consultative planning process that delivers high quality urban outcomes and respects the built and natural environment. So I think that that's a very clear message that Ku-ring-gai, as all other councils that are opposing this Min's government planning, is actually going to, they want to collaborate, they want to work with the community, and they want to actually put planning in place that isn't a one-size-fits-all and works for the local council areas where we don't lose our heritage, we don't lose our tree canopy and everything else. I think that everybody's aware here that, everybody's aware that this is off the back of the extraordinary meeting on the 5th of February, and I think that's a very clear message, and I hope to get everybody's support on that this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Wheatley as seconder.
I was actually going to say the same thing. So just to reiterate some of the things that Councillor Smith said, is this is about collaborative communication between us and the New South Wales State Government, also other, like you mentioned before, throughout the wider community. Heritage and tree canopy is extremely important in Ku-ring-gai Council, and obviously that needs to be front and centre of the discussions as well.
Right, thank you. Are there any other speakers on this item? Deputy Mayor Kay.
Thank you. I've got a speech, and then I've got a couple of questions, if I may. So I'd like to, because I was unable, because I needed to declare a conflict of interest, I wasn't able to speak at the extraordinary meeting, so I just got to say a couple of words now. I'd like to begin by thanking the staff for the hard work that has gone into drafting this submission to the department. There was only a very small window, and it fell within Christmas break, as well as successfully pulling together a community forum which was well delivered by staff and well received by the community. We must acknowledge that there is a housing crisis. Having moved residents myself in the last 6 months, I know how difficult it is and can understand how desperate the need is for more housing supply. This is very real. Every council area will need to contribute to addressing this. Our council is no different. There is a problem that needs to be addressed at all levels of government. Individual councils should, though, determine where the housing should go. Every council is different. There are no current studies that demonstrate capacity. With the Stage 2 TODs, which include stations of Roseville, Clara, Linfield and Gordon, it's very different to plan with circles on a map that indicate 400 metres. For instance, Linfield and Gordon potentially may have a great deal more capacity than the suburbs of Roseville and Clara. Maybe we could look at 800 metres rather than 400 metres at these TOD stations, but let us as a council decide what is best and works for our communities, and work with state government to achieve this. It is disappointing that in earlier correspondence from the government, it highlighted the importance of working with council. I can't see that this has occurred to date, but I still remain hopeful that this may happen before April. The TODCEP ignores best practice planning methodology. Council has already undertaken studies and highlighted areas where there is no potential for new housing in some of these areas. There could be potential increase in the resident population to highlight our lack of open space, increased traffic and further drainage and stormwater issues, reduction of canopy, increased capacity at schools, the need for more libraries, facilities, etc. Infrastructure is the key word here, and the existence of railway stations does not mean that supporting infrastructure is adequate. One size does not fit all, and the impact of this lack of coordination may be extremely damaging to our community. We need to look at alternative housing needs for all our residents, where we can still maintain the heritage significance as well as the green canopy and the garden settings that has attracted residents to the leafy green North Shore. Council recently posted a message on their website, which, in my opinion, basically says it all. The negatives are an increase in traffic congestion, loss of trees and wildlife, heritage and character, strain on existing infrastructure and facilities. What needs to be done? Consulting directly with communities, emphasis on working with local councils to understand each community, protect natural and built heritage, maintaining the tree canopy and wildlife environment, investing in all new and additional infrastructure. The only option at this current point in time, in my opinion, with a lack of detail, would be to defer the implementation of the SEPs. Thank you. I've just got a couple of questions. So through you, Mr. Mayor, through to Director of Strategy, which is Andrew Watson, I want to discuss something that hasn't really been discussed previously, which is affordable housing. Now, I've noted that in the proposed plan it states 2%. How much will this actually provide, and can we do better?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, given the considerable uplift in particularly the Todd precinct, there is a lot of value capture which has probably not been secured by a 2% levy for affordable housing.
Okay. Okay, now I do recall last term we submitted our local housing strategy, and there was a letter that came back right at the end of the term. And unfortunately, I believe the vote was 6-4 and it was defeated. One of the recommendations was number 10, I don't know if you have this in front of you, Director Watson, but Council is to prepare an affordable housing contribution scheme that commits Council to examining the feasibility of levying affordable housing contributions for any new planning proposal that result in development uplift or an increase in land. With the affordable housing scheme, could we possibly develop our own plan with a higher percentage?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the intention of condition 10 of the conditions on the housing strategy was that Council could take the initiative itself, and at that time, in the context of work being done by the Greater Cities Commission, there was figures anywhere between 8 and upwards of 12% that councils could have applied for affordable housing, and some councils in Sydney are well above the 2% at the present time with their own contribution schemes, yes.
Thank you. I've got another question. This one will be through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director Miosic. How many DAs do we have in the pipeline? Yes.
Currently, there'd be roughly 300 DAs outstanding.
Sorry, how many?
Roughly 300.
300? Okay, thank you. And I've got another question through you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe this would potentially be the Acting General Manager. Can you please explain what current issues we have with stormwater and drainage? So what is the current cost at this point, or it might even be the Director of Finance?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the current backlog on drainage is about cost of satisfaction to bring everything into condition 3 is about 60 million. However, the backlog to bring everything to new, which is normally what we rely on, it's $198 million.
Thank you. And one last question. So this is through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director Watson. Did council staff not recommend a project approximately 5 years ago within the 400 metres of Linfield Station, which is known as the Linfield Village Hub at 14 stories? Yes or no will suffice.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's my recollection that when that particular proposal was considered by council, I had declared an interest in the matter and wasn't in the room when council looked at the 14-storey proposal. And that was because I was working in assessing the proposals rather than formulating the proposals.
Can I redirect that to the Acting General Manager, David Marshall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there was a proposal that the Linfield Hub proceed at 14 stories, recommended by staff.
Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Kay, twigged my interest. My question is tree canopy. How many trees are we getting rid of on the Linfield Village Hub?
I don't have that at the top of my head, sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. Councillor Kay, I think it's well over 100. I might tag team yourself. How many critically endangered trees are we getting rid of on the Linfield Village Hub?
I don't believe there is relevance in this question, so I will not be answering. My question to the Director was completely different to what you are answering, and the Village Hub is not up for discussion. Thank you.
That's okay. No, I was just tic-tacking on your tree canopy. So, councillors, it was interesting that we are talking about tree canopy and, you know, high density, and yes, the Linfield Village Hub. It's a bit of a case of do as I say, not as I do. We're steaming ahead with 9 stories plus of high density, and yet we're putting out ad campaigns saying we don't want high density. We're also putting out ad campaigns saying save our trees and save our wildlife. And yet we are cutting down well over 100 trees. So possibly we need to walk the walk a little bit more on this, and I'll leave it at that.
I may speak to this as well. So ultimately, this is about recognising that the population is growing and wanting to support the future residents of New South Wales in the best way possible. We want homes which have walking distance to shops, to supermarkets, to schools, to work, to recreation. We want walking distance to all sorts of things, but that is not something that we currently experience here in Ku-ring-gai. Especially if you look at the Todd stations, Roseville and Killara, they currently do not have a supermarket, and by that I mean a Coles, a Woolworths, an Aldi, anything like that. So Roseville and Killara do not have a supermarket. Some parts of these town centres are deficient of an acceptable open space for recreation within walking distance. And council has previously, in its plans, actively sought to cater for this, to identify future locations where recreation can take place. Some of our residents in these suburbs, they wait 20 minutes at a traffic light just to get past. And we've contacted the state government, whether it be Liberal or Labor in the past, and nobody seems to care. There's no support from the state government to improve the existing congestion. So that these infrastructure and amenity issues are things that we would like to see planned for, addressed, funded as part of the process of increasing the population in New South Wales. We are supportive of having a planned approach to increasing the population. We believe that this is a consistent challenge, not just for Ku-ring-gai, but for all councils. But I do want to recognise that in our survey, although 75% shared these sentiments, there was another 25% who were opposed or who had not yet formed a view. I do understand where other residents are coming from. In fact, one such resident sits here in the gallery, and I met with him recently just to explore our perspectives. I think it is important to understand that here in a democracy, we've got all sorts of residents with all sorts of desires and wishes, and we wish to try to support those wishes that even the minority want. In receiving emails from other members of the minority, affordable housing was something that popped up on a number of occasions. I note that as of 2021, Ku-ring-gai had 119 rentable social housing dwellings, and that is something that we as a council can pursue and increase. There are all sorts of measures that we can take to help make New South Wales a great place to live and make Ku-ring-gai a great place to live. But we can't do any of that properly and have a walkable city without proper planning in place. Just one final comment that I'd like to make, that there is a dilemma, right? When you have an increasing population, you can either increase the density and go upwards or have more houses in one site, or you could just continue to go out and chop more trees and clear out more bush and build more homes that way. So going back to the Linfield Village Hub, for example, if we are to build hundreds of homes, the question there is, do we clear some trees within the Linfield town centre to support hundreds of homes, or do we clear thousands of trees elsewhere in order to support hundreds of homes? And if I had to make that choice, I would pick doing it next to public transport any day, because the impact on the environment is lesser, and also we are giving our residents a greater chance to have a walkable city. On that, I finish up. Seeking any other speakers to this motion? If not, I would like to ask Councillor Smith to sum up.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I think without going back over too much more ground, I think with the extraordinary meeting we had on the 5th of February and the staff recommendation that's come from that, I think that we've actually sending a very clear message to the New South Wales State Government that we are doing our planning. We continue to encourage the New South Wales State Government to work with all councils in the Greater Sydney area. At the moment, I think we've got 5,307 surveys that have come about. I think that we've been heavily impacted with our heritage. Not I think, I know that our heritage has been greatly impacted in the way that the New South Wales Government has proposed. Our tree canopy has been heavily impacted. Our infrastructure is 1930s sewer, 1930s stormwater. I think it's important that the Minns government comes back to the table and works with councils to put planning in that's acceptable to the residents that us as a council and other councils represent. I think that's a priority for this Minns government, is because we currently, with what we're faced with at the moment, we're at a crossroad where we're looking at losing our heritage, our tree canopy, and I hate to say it, but that's Ku-ring-gai's identity. So for those reasons, I hope that we get everybody's support this evening on this. Thank you.
Let's put this item to a vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Next up, we have notices of motion.
Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Sorry, okay. Councillor Smith, you have one other item.
Mr. Mayor, yes,
GB
sorry.
18.
Just whilst we're on this, could I please ask the staff to bring up a notice of motion that I'd like to put forward on the back end of GB 18, an additional notice of motion, if you like.
Just checking the technicalities with the acting general manager. Do we call this an additional NM or just a continuation of GB 18?
Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's another motion relating to the item business that GB 18 was dealing with, which was the housing matter.
And is this permissible under our code?
Yes, it is, Mr. Mayor, because notice of the business has been given in the business paper about the housing, the tide and the lower mid-rise set. So as long as you as the chair consider that this relates to that matter, it can be moved as a separate motion.
Okay, so I do consider this
Sorry,
as
procedural?
Oh yes, Councillor Spencer.
Sorry, thank you. I'm sorry, I respectfully disagree with the acting general manager. For that clause that you were referring to, I believe it's 9.3, and that's for a mirror minute, but not for a new motion. So the new motion has to be an urgent motion, if that makes sense. You can move for urgency.
Do you want to move for urgency, Councillor Smith?
I'll let the acting general manager answer first, then I'm happy to move an urgent if need be.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So 9.3 deals with business to be considered if due notice has not been given. My argument before was that notice of business has been given because GB 18 is on the agenda and it's about transport-oriented development program and lower mid-rise housing provisions. Multiple motions can be moved on a matter. So this is another motion on the same matter of which notice of the business has been given.
And as chair on this occasion, I'm happy to allow this, although I would just prefer if there was more heads up on future occasions. So, Councillor Smith, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll read it out because as you've already alluded to, it has come up just recently, and I haven't given the councillors the opportunity. So I'll read it out. The background. In 2021 census...
Sorry, I'm going to declare a conflict, please. I'm going to step outside.
All right, sure.
Thank you.
Would you like to specify whether it is non-pecuniary, non-significant?
Yes, it's non-pecuniary, non-significant.
Right, thank you. All right, Councillor Smith, please proceed. If the staff press Control F1, it would remove the ribbon as well. I'll show more on the screen. Thanks.
Right, so I'll read it out. Background. In the 2021 census, 8% of homes in Sydney were unoccupied, and in Ku-ring-gai, 7% or 3,165 homes were unoccupied. Unoccupied homes have a significant effect on housing affordability. The City of Vancouver introduced an empty homes tax in 2017 to address this issue. The empty homes tax in Vancouver has had the following impacts. From 2017 to 2022, the number of vacant properties decreased by 54%. At the same time, 142 million of revenue from the tax was allocated to support affordable housing initiatives over that same period. The New South Wales Government should follow the lead of the City of Vancouver and explore the introduction of an empty homes tax. The motion that Council requests the New South Wales Government to explore the introduction of an empty homes tax to address our housing affordability.
Councillor, so I understand that is moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Wheatley. Councillor Smith, would you like to talk to us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I understand that what we're talking about at the moment, is a state government decision. We're a council, but we're very much inflicted with the decisions that they are currently making. It is easy for the New South Wales state government to verify all the facts that we've actually put up there this evening. The census that was done in 2021, Ku-ring-gai having 7% of homes are unoccupied, which is 3,165 homes, which would be of a great benefit even if a percentage of those could be leased out and rented to assist in this housing crisis we currently have. 2017, the Vancouver introduced that empty home tax. As I stated there prior, for between 2017 and 2022, 54% of those homes, it was a decrease of 54% of the homes of being unoccupied, which would be a fantastic result in any area of Sydney. It managed to raise $142 million revenue to support affordable housing for those people that paid that tax. I think that the New South Wales government has to look at what they can do quickly in order to deal with this housing crisis that they are highly concerned with, as am I. And I think that there's possibly, or in proof of concept, that some of these issues could be resolved very quickly and providing houses where they're needed as a priority if we were to do so. Thank you.
Councillor Wheatley as seconder.
I'll reserve my right.
Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too agree that it would have been better to have been able to consider this motion with more time. It feels a little bit rushed, and my understanding is that Victoria has recently introduced something like this and also have a levy for undeveloped land, I think, as well. So I think they've got a couple of sort of similar metrics, similar methods. I think in general, engaging with the state government and asking them to consider a wide range of solutions is a good principle. And I do think that we should try as many things as we can. I think it's a big problem and a thorny one, and there are no short-term solutions. So broadly speaking, I'm in support of this. However, I would also recognise that I believe Premier Minns ruled this out in October. I think he actually went on record saying that he was not going to consider this. Perhaps we can ask him to have another think about it.
Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I share Councillor Alec Taylor's views. This looks an attractive idea. I would have liked the chance to contemplate it a bit earlier. I also believe that the state of Victoria has done something similar. All we can do is ask. So much is talked about housing at the moment. This is a chance to show that we are not simply rejecting the state government's attempts to impose housing on the state. We are looking at other ideas, other options to deal with the housing issues. And again, this is simply a request. We're putting out the idea. We're telling the state government, look at this. For whatever reason, Premier Minns discounted the idea some months ago. Since then, he has announced his housing plans for the state, and I think this is very opportune to turn around and say, well, please look at it again. Please show that there's other options worthy of consideration. If not, consider it, tell us why. So I support this motion. Thank the councillors for moving it.
Next up, we have Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I also support this motion, even though it is hurried. I also know it might give the state government an opportunity to hurry along some of the probates. Often they are sitting with the public trustees for people who are deceased for these properties to be cleared so that people can go sell it and do whatever they need to. I am personally aware of a number of properties that are still waiting for probate to get through, so perhaps this would be another tool for the state government to look at to get a fast track on it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Kay.
I've just got a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to let's have a look. Councillor Alec Taylor, you spoke about men's discounting the idea. Do you know why?
Not really. I believe that he, at the time, was focused on supply and not interested in unlocking existing capacity. So his focus was elsewhere.
Okay. I've also then got a question for you, Councillor Smith. Can we maybe, are we suggesting that we write to the relevant minister who looks after housing as well as Chris Minns directly?
Thank you, Councillor Kay. I am, advising.
Can we maybe just jiggle the wording around a bit? Maybe the relevant state minister?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to, any staff input with.
And Councillor Alec Taylor did use some terminology of looking at a range of solutions. Do you think maybe we could add something? I mean, there's other things, obviously, like long-term housing rather than short stay. I know you're looking at options and I commend that.
Look, I'm quite happy to add other options, but I think this particular option at the moment's got a proven one, and is the reason why I've headed straight for it. But I'm quite happy to incorporate that.
Okay, no worries. It's just that obviously this is a major policy change, so it goes through a process. Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to speak in support of this motion. Yes, this was a relatively surprising motion, but I did a quick email search to see who else I had spoken to previously about unoccupied dwellings. And I see an email back in October 2017 where I shared these statistics with Councillor Greenfield, our good friend. At the time, Ku-ring-gai had 2,799 unoccupied private dwellings. That represents 6.6% of Ku-ring-gai at the time. And since then, in 5 years later, it's increased to 3,165. So from 6.6% to 6.9%. This issue of having unoccupied dwellings isn't Ku-ring-gai alone. If we look at Willoughby Council, 8.6%, Hornsby Shire Council, 5.5%, Ryde Council, 8.8%, New South Wales as a whole, 8.9%, and Australia, 9.6%. So we have a lot of unoccupied dwellings here in Australia. Now, I think it's important to recognise that there are other reasons for this. It is possible that someone's gone on a holiday. I'm planning a potential holiday in December. Like, that's going to be an unoccupied dwelling one day. Someone could be away for work. Someone could, a home could be in between owners, that sort of thing. So there are reasons, but still, 6.9% within Ku-ring-gai is a bit on the high side. And if there were measures from the state government that target this issue, perhaps it would incentivise conditions where we will have less unoccupied dwellings in the future, and it will put less of a resource or infrastructure strain here across the state. I am more than happy to write a letter to the relevant government minister. I'm more than happy to, in the same letter, ask that they provide us information on other options that they are considering to address this issue. But yeah, I do support Councillor Smith and Wheatley on this particular motion and encourage other councillors to do the same. Thank you. Councillor Ward, do you have a question?
Mr. Mayor, sorry, I do. We're just kind of wondering how would we rule and how would this be monitored? That the house is empty, and would that be done by council staff? Would that be done by state government? How will it be resourced financially? There's a whole lot of things that surrounds this, so just curious.
So, Acting GM.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The ones that are in place, like in Vancouver, are monitored. Well, first of all, people have to fill out annual returns to declare whether or not they're actually living in the home or not, and then there's a whole audit process. So this is way bigger than Ku-ring-gai Council. If it was to be brought in, it would really need to be brought in probably at a state level and managed that way. Council, they could, but they have an audit process, so you have to provide evidence of whether you've been living there or not. And there's all sorts of ways you can do that, like records of utility bills, tax returns. Well, that's for the state government to explore. So in Vancouver, the city of Vancouver does it, but it's a lot bigger than Ku-ring-gai. So it would need to be done probably at a state level in New South Wales. Yeah, they could. The people who do the stamp duty and land tax could do the vacant homes tax.
Councillor Smith, you have a question?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Right, thanks. Now, in the absence of other speakers, I'd like to invite Councillor Smith to sum up.
Mr. Mayor, just firstly, I've taken it on notice that it was a last-minute surprise. This was something that I cooked up this afternoon rather urgently and tried to put it together, and it wasn't meant to be a surprise as such, but here it is. But I do hear what Councillor Alec Taylor said, that it seems a little bit rushed, but I can assure you it's not as rushed as the Min's housing strategy, that's for sure. The Victorian model, I just wanted to answer on the Victorian model. It didn't work. That was just really a failed attempt from the Victorian government, and maybe that's what the Min's government was looking at when it made the comments what Councillor Taylor was referring to. This one here, as we've heard this evening, is a very much different process. It has an audit situation. It's almost like having a tax office dealing with it, where you've got to bring your receipts in and demonstrate how this has come about. I feel very comfortable with the model that they've done, because in that 5-year period, their unoccupied homes are down 54%. I think that's amazing, and that would be a great benefit to our housing crisis if something like this could be looked at. For those reasons, I hope that I get everybody's support here this evening. I hope we get all the councils in New South Wales, in Greater Sydney, get the Min's government support in looking at something like this and looking outside the box rather than just trying to push the homes up, because I think most of us, a big percentage of us here, all have children. My 3 children live in Ku-ring-gai. I have an interest in my 3 children being able to purchase a property in Ku-ring-gai. I dare say they may move out somewhere else first, but I would like it that they can, and I think that it can be done in a sensible way if the Min's government works with councils and allows the councils of the Greater Sydney to do planning. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's put this to a vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Can we please ask Councillor Spencer to join us again? We are now up to notices of motion, and we have one. NM1, 2024 Community Relief Fund. Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just noticed that this talks about Lifeline. I just wanted clarification if it was Lifeline National or Lifeline H2HS, because if it is H2HS, I have a conflict.
Councillor Taylor, would you like to clarify?
It is the local branch of
Sorry, I have a non-pecuniary interest.
Okay, so non-pecuniary, non-significant interest. Councillor Ward would like to step out for this particular item. Okay, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. So I'd like to move the motion as printed.
Seconded by Councillor Pettit. Feel free to go.
Oh, thank you. Just very briefly, over the last few months, I've been talking to a range of businesses, mostly in Linfield and Roseville. Most of them have been feeling the pinch as their customers have been tightening their belts. One of the business owners said that a small number of people are finding it really tough. There are people in Ku-ring-gai that are finding it really tough at the moment with pressure on housing costs, inflation, groceries, you name it, they're finding it tough. I took that problem to staff a few weeks ago, and I want to thank our Manager of Community Development, Danny Housius, for his idea of this Community Relief Fund, production of this NOM, and all staff involved. Thank you to the Director and Acting General Manager as well, whether it's supported or not. I believe this is a relatively modest, temporary solution to an unusual problem, implemented through organisations that have governance and processes in place to manage the distribution of relief to our community across Ku-ring-gai.
Councillor Pettit as seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Taylor, I think you've sold yourself a little bit short here. 50,000, I would be having a 1 in front of that. Seriously, I'm quite happy to move an amendment, make it 150. Given that we have 120,000 residents, it's only a little bit more than $1 per resident. That's what we're going to make it 150. Councillor Taylor, if we're going to do it, let's do it well.
So the number itself, I didn't choose the number. The number was recommended by staff. I was comfortable with the initial number, given that it balances both the extraordinary pressures we've got on the financials of council with the need in the community. And I think one thing to note here is that in many cases we're talking about a single bill. You know, we're not talking about $5,000 or $10,000 for a new something or other, as we sometimes do when we're talking about grants. Quite often here we're talking about paying a bill. You know, it's just one bill. I feel that the $50,000 will go a reasonable way. Having said that, I'm not averse to increasing it, but I think I would probably leave it in the hands of council. I'm wondering if we could perhaps move it as an amendment, or...
I'm happy to move it as an amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay. So amendment by Councillor Pettit, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kay. Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Councillor Kay, for seconding. It's always good to get a seconder occasionally. 150,000. When you think about what we have here, it's a crisis. It's not just a minor ripple. So if we're going to do it properly. That's why I said go for it. Because we don't want to sit back and say, oh, geez, perhaps we should have done a little bit more 12 months down the track. As they say, go hard or go home. So I'm going hard on this one, Sunshine. It's all good. So that's why we're doing 150. We have the capacity here in Ku-ring-gai to do it. Look at our balance sheet. How many millions of dollars do we have on our balance sheet? When you compare that to 150,000, a paltry 150,000, I think we can do it. And if you're going to take the lead on a particular topic, take it with strength. 150 is a strong number. People will actually sit up and take notice of it. So I would hope that councillors will support the 150 mark. Thank you.
Councillor Kay as seconder.
Okay, I'd like to thank you for Councillor Pettit for putting this forward with the increase. I think we're looking at, like even stated here, we've got Catholic Care, Mission Australia, Salvation Army and Lifeline. They are major not-for-profit organisations. I'm sure they cover a lot of people. I think the 150 is a good figure. Obviously, if people don't apply for all the 150, well, so be it. No, but at least it gives us a higher range. I know previously we have put out grants of a certain amount and we've not necessarily reached that amount. So I'm all for support of this. Thank you.
Councillor Alex Taylor. Sorry, lights on. Do we have any other speakers on this? If not, let's put this amendment to a vote. So we are voting on making 150,000 the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands, and that is unanimous. That has now become the motion. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd love to support this motion. This is one of those motions that demonstrates that this council cares about people. This is a response to individual cases, individual concerns raised by individual residents. And I think it's wonderful that we can, if you like, put aside the huge issues in the world and just focus on individuals within this municipality at this particular time in history need a bit of a helping hand. So I'm very pleased that Councillor Alex Taylor has put this motion up, and I hope that we'll support it.
All right, are there any other speakers on this motion? If not, I would invite Councillor Alex Taylor as the original mover to sum up.
No thanks.
Okay, let us put this to a vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. We can now invite Councillor Ward to come back in. Next up is confidential matters, and we have already addressed item C1 previously. So next up is business without notice. Is there any business without notice? There is none. Next up, we have questions with notice, and we do have one question, which is QN1. What is Council's expected capacity in terms of visitors and parking spaces at the North Turramurra Recreation area with the new NSFA grandstand and ancillary facilities? I ask whether the staff have an answer at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The answers to the above questions will be provided at or before the March 2024 ordinary meeting of Council.
All right, thank you. And just clarification, how will that answer be provided? Will it be just an email to councillors, or will it be in print?
Mr. Mayor, it will be provided it may well be provided to councillors beforehand, but it will also be printed on the agenda of the next business paper.
All right, thank you. Next up is inspections, but there are none. So there being no further business, I would like to thank councillors and staff. I would also like to thank the members of the public for their attendance. The webcast of this meeting will be available on the council website, and minutes will be published within the next 2 working days. I declare the meeting closed at 9:19 p.m. Thank you.